Welcome back to Passion and Purpose. April is recognized as National Minority Health Month, as well as Stress Awareness Month. And one of the biggest stressors that all of us carry, but we rarely talk about, is suffering in silence. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when pain goes unspoken, needs go unexpressed, and silence slowly becomes the way we survive. I'm excited to bring to the stage my co-hosts, Mr. Al Thomas and Miss Laurencia Bethay.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it home. Yeah, beautiful. And I'm excited about the fact today of us diving into, something that many people experience but don't openly talk about, which is suffering in silence. There are moments in life when we feel something deeply like frustration, sadness, disappointment, or even loneliness, yet instead of expressing it, we tuck it away. We tell ourselves, oh, that's not that big of a deal, or we might handle it in our own way, or that speaking up might cause conflict or misunderstanding. So I'm definitely excited to be touching on this topic today.
I only have one question for our audience, and that is, are you ready to heal?
That's a good one right there, Mr. Al, because at the end of the day, the truth is what we silence, it doesn't disappear. And unspoken emotions have a way of settling quietly, like in our hearts and our thoughts and even in our bodies. And over time, that silence can become a weight, again, that we were never meant to carry alone.
Are you ready to heal? Okay. And then Miss Wren starting us out preaching already on this good Sunday of the day that we are recording. So I think that is the perfect segue into our first question. Are y'all ready to get into this?
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to get question number 1. So the first question asks, we often become frustrated by what we fail to communicate. How does that frustration evolve into silent suffering over time?
Well, I want to start by saying frustration comes from a long historic line for us to be frustrated. It's a history behind us suffering in silence. I believe you said that at one point in time, us being exposed or someone listening to us or even hearing our voice could mean some type of punishment or repercussions behind our voice. And this why culturally we say things like no snitching, or the elders may say, you don't tell those people your business. But so we keep these things to ourselves. And frustration for our pain and for our suffering, we just learn to endure, because historically, alleged whistle meant the death of a young Emmett Till. So even that sound right there, just and we have recorded that. So frustration becomes or is, I want to say, an emotional response to an expression or a need not being met. And when that need is not being met, the brain flags that as rejection. And rejection is still in the neuro space of what is considered a perceived threat. And when something is perceived as a threat, we know automatically we go into the fight, flight, or freeze. In this case, we either defend or we withdraw. And if we're withdrawing, we're not freely expressing ourselves because we're looking at the expression as a risk at this moment. And so communication cannot go freely with those components in play.
Absolutely. Like Mr. Al said, it can start as a need that was never spoken. So to me, frustration, it often begins as a small whisper within us, a moment where something didn't feel right, where a boundary was crossed, But in that moment, we tell ourselves like, oh, no, it's all good. I just let it go, whatever. But what we don't express, it doesn't disappear. It literally settles within our body. And over time, those unspoken moments accumulate in our bodies. Frustration becomes heaviness, that heaviness that I spoke on, that, we weren't meant to carry that heaviness alone. And that heaviness itself slowly transforms into silent suffering because the voice within us begins to feel unheard, even by ourselves. So when we constantly silence our truth, we begin carrying emotional weight. And eventually the frustration isn't just about that moment anymore. It becomes more of like a pattern of not feeling safe, seen, supported. Like we don't feel supported enough to even speak out. We don't even feel safe enough on certain things to speak out.
That's so good. And, to what both of you have said, it really makes me think about how, like you said, Mr. Al, for our community, thinking back to our ancestors, that was how we were taught to survive, is through suffering in silence. Opening your mouth out of turn or what have you could lead to very detrimental things. And so I think that some of those things have been passed down, and we have come to understand, for many of us, that we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to, you don't talk about what you need. You be the solution. I know someone very close to me, who has shared many times with me that you didn't have time because you were in a survival mode situation. Your family needed things to keep food in their mouth and to keep a shelter over your head. You didn't have time to be talking about what you needed. It didn't matter even if you brought home an A from school. Is that A about to give us some food? Okay, so we need to go figure what do we need to be doing so we can eat. And I think sometimes when we're in those situations, it becomes where it's not even like you were saying, Ren, it's not necessarily that you're not sharing how you feel because you don't care. It's because you feel like that part of what you need to communicate doesn't matter. And when you feel like it doesn't matter, then it can also create the situation where you don't even have the language anymore to share how you feel, or whenever you need something or when something's not right. You don't even have the language for it because all you know is to survive. And I need to be silent about what I need, how I feel, emotions, all this kind of stuff. It don't matter right now because we gotta eat, and it can create that just that continuous cycle of consistently suffering in silence, silencing how we need, because we don't want to be a burden. We don't want to cause conflict, like you said, create issues. Maybe we've been in a situation where we have our voice has been suppressed. If we've been, in situations where those individuals who are over us suppressed our voice. So then we felt like you grew up thinking that you don't speak out of your intuition or you don't listen to your intuition because it's been suppressed for so long, until someone comes along and says to you, no, it is okay to speak and say what doesn't feel right, what doesn't, what's not right. And so it just kind of like one of those situations where it's just survival mode to suffer in silence. All right, well, we will just go right on to question number 2. What fears or internal narratives cause people to choose silence even when that silence hurts them?
With that, I'll follow up just how you and Mr. Al answered with the last question. Many of us learned at an early age that speaking our truth could lead to rejection, conflict, or misunderstanding. So then the mind creates those protective stories or those narratives of, I don't want to be a burden, or it's not that serious, or they should already know how I feel. But it's those narratives that become like the internal guards that keep us quiet. And beneath those stories is often a deeper fear, the fear of losing connection, the fear of being judged, the fear of discovering that our needs might not be honored. So then silence becomes a strategy for maintaining peace on the outside, even while something inside of us is like wanting to badly, is aching to be acknowledged.
Yes, I believe that we have to create a non-judgmental environment, or else the fear of rejection, as well as being a burden, as Rand said, it could feel different for us as individuals. So when fixing, especially when we perceive as being strong, when we're perceived as being strong, then we reject help ourselves. But we expect help in others, but we don't expect them to reach out to us. So therefore, we suffer in silence. And I want to speak to hyper independence. It's when we're very self reliant, even when we need help. We still will not reach out to individuals because our image of being the helper is kind of like exposed then. And sometimes this may take away from the only identity that we have is being independent. Even when the mental health shows that feeling like a burden is one of the strongest predictors of emotional withdrawal and silent suffering. That means that this probably have happened to us in our past experiences. That's why we don't reach out to other individuals for the help. So instead of risking rejection again or judgment, people use silence because it feels safer.
I really I love what both of you have said, and I think that, that's one of the things for many of us. We feel like y'all have said, we have been taught to endure. That's just kind of the thing that has just been passed down to so many of us. And some of us, kind of going back to the personal story that I know of, we will suffer in silence even when it hurts us, because we're afraid that if I stop and take time to address whatever is going on in here, that's going to mean that my family don't eat. That's going to mean that I lose, this job. That's going to mean that I lose this relationship. That's going to mean that I something harmful may happen to me. Like, there's so many things that are happening in this life, and all of us are in different situations. But at the end of the day, for many of us, we all, because we have been conditioned in our minds that you just have to keep going, because you have to make sure that things are taken care of. Like you were talking about, that hyper independence. People are depending on you. You don't have time to be thinking about how you feel and all of this kind of stuff. There's people depending on you. But at the end of the day, all of us stand in need of help. Every single one of us. And I think that for many of us, it can be difficult to communicate how we feel. One, because we may not have the language for how we feel, and then two, it's too risky. The vulnerability is way too risky, and we don't want to be that person that is showing too much of what's going on in here, because then that could put us at a disadvantage. Or this is at least what we can tell ourselves, even though it may not be true. And so we would rather be quiet and keep our emotions to ourselves, suffer in silent, while all this stuff is going on the inside. We're slowly decaying inside almost, because we consistently choose not to say, because for whatever reason, we don't feel like we're in a safe enough space to do so.
And to Dia's point, I would like to share a message that I received yesterday. And I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it was something along the lines of the craving for love and companionship, or just being around other people, does not necessarily contribute to the factor of having to operate in a daily life of chaos.
Say that one more time.
Sometimes that will entail, wanting to continue suffering in silence, but that craving for love or companionship, it does not necessarily mean that you have to continue operating in your daily life in a space of chaos.
That's good. And I know this is kind of off topic, but on topic with you saying that. When I listen to, because we're all in different seasons of our life, singleness, married life, and sometimes the way you hear marriage spoken of is like it's the thing to achieve in life. You know, if you're a female of a certain age and you're single, that, what's going on? Or male at a certain age, what's going on? But something that came to me, this was early on when I got married, and that thing bothered me because I'm just like, no, but something came to me. It was like, singleness is not the pit and marriage is not the palace. Wherever we are in life, wherever you are in your journey, you are whole right where you are. You are just as brilliant and wonderful and full and whole right where you are. You don't have to be on this side or the other for it to feel like you are in some fulfilled space and time, or that you have ascended to the highest place. You know what I mean? But to your point, Ren, it's like, even in this, I think this is why it is so vitally important, no matter what space you are in the part of the journey of life you're on, to always take time to work in here, because regardless of if you have that love that you desire or not, it is never going to fulfill what needs to really be touched on the inside of here. It is only our creator that can truly do that. And you need to be able to sit with yourself and to get that. You can't look outwardly and expect that some other person coming into your life is going to help that. We have to do that inner work on our own, whether you are here or on that other side.
That's definitely on topic. Yeah, that's good.
Well, I think we can jump right into question number 3. What do you think?
Yeah.
You ready? Okay. Question number 3 asks, how does unspoken pain quietly impact mental health, relationships, or even physical well-being? Chronic suppression is linked to higher rates of depression and anxiety. When you cannot name it, you cannot manage it.
Yeah. So I want to take a shot at this. Something difficult for me to express. It just hit me just now, but I believe I have been a wellness coach for over 20 years as of now, and a health guru. So I'm really careful about the thoughts that I process, what goes in, what comes out. I've been a vegetarian over 18 years. All that to say, when I teach on the train a medic and cut man, my brother, which was 2 years older than me, was my cut man, and I lost him in 2020. And I was trying to figure in my head, like, what was it? We ate right. We had positive thoughts, mentorship, all those things in play, and he still developed a chronic illness. And what I realized is it was he was suffering.
Mm.
He was suffering in silence. We came from a hostile environment, and to express yourself freely can be frowned upon, maybe looked at as being weak. And this is almost not like just a saying, but a warning to our audience and to those that please reach out for help. It can be a life or death of situation of just you speaking and saying, hey, I need to let some things off my chest. I need to be able to express myself. And I think just expressing yourself will make the world a difference. And I know for us being in the mental health world, depression and anxiety, you suppressing these things, it's not healthy in that sense as well. The mind, the body was designed to release. So the sooner we can release some things, we should do so. Yeah, that's my take.
Absolutely. And just following up on, and Mr. Al, I'm really sorry to hear about the transition of your brother. But I do think it's a really great thing that you were able to discover, you know what, even on a great health journey, it was this thing right here that led to it. So like you said, when we suppress emotions long enough, the nervous system remains in a constant, it's in a tense space. And the mind keeps replaying unresolved feelings, which can gradually contribute to anxiety, sadness, or even emotional fatigue. And in reference to the question, how does it affect relationships? In relationships, silence can create distance. The other person may not even know that there's something wrong with you, while internally we walk around here feeling unheard or unsupported. And as far as the chronic emotional suppression, it has been connected to increased stress levels and sleep disruptions and things that we look at as minor as headaches, but then it develops into, larger issues, bigger issues. We have digestive issues and higher rates of depression and anxiety. The truth is, when we cannot name it, we cannot manage it. So naming our experience is often the first step towards healing it.
That is so good. And kind of to go along with just what you guys have said, and I have my notes here. One of the things that I noted down is language is how we process emotion. If we don't have words, like you said, Ren, the pain stays trapped in our body. We can't manage it. And that's, language is a very important thing, because if you think about it, when you travel across the world, language is the one thing that if there is no mutual communication or language in between the group of people that are in that place and space, then it can create scenarios for you that are just extremely unfavorable. I remember traveling over to France, okay? And people say, well, they're not very kind there, And when we got there, sure enough, some situations were not very kind because we knew no lick of French. But then I saw someone else who actually took the time to learn some French phrases and things so when they got over there, they could communicate. Got to Paris, they could communicate. Completely different experience because they had language to communicate. That's all they wanted to know was that did you take a little time to learn the language of where you're coming so that we can communicate? And it created a bridge. And I say that to say language is important. The words we use are important. I had this conversation with my husband. One word that I cannot stand now that I understand it is the word expat. And I don't like that word because when Americans travel to another country, we get to be expats. But when anybody else travel from or come to our land from a different place, oh, they're an immigrant, they're a migrant, they're expat it's the same meaning. It's one person moving to a place that is not their origin. But that word expat gives you a little bit of a in status because of the word when they mean essentially the same thing. And from an emotional standpoint, when we don't have language to express our emotions, to let people know how we feel about something, the very thing that can get us from point A to point B and actually having a healthy environment, then it causes that stuff to get trapped on the inside. because we're afraid to say how we feel because I don't have the right words to say. But like you have said, Mr. Al, like in our previous episode, what goes in has to come out.
Yeah.
Our bodies are designed that way. If we eat something, that better come out or you're going to be sick.
Yeah.
And that actually ties into our last episode, speaking about emotional fluency, because if we don't have the emotional fluency, if we don't have the verbiage or the vocabulary, then it becomes a barrier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we are really, working on helping our community and ourselves, honestly, because if I'm being completely honest, when I'm listening to these, it's really doing some healthy work inside of me. It makes me think twice about the words that I'm using or take a minute and really figure out what's going on. So this is what we are really helping to create in our community going forward, is creating that ability, that permission to be vulnerable, to have that healthy emotional fluency, and to create language that says it's okay. It's okay to say how you feel and what you need. Okay, so we will move right on to question number 4. And question number 4 asks, when people focus more on what they don't like instead of what they need, how does that contribute to silent suffering?
Planks focus attention on the problem, which will continue. I think you guys both spoke on like reoccurring thoughts. So when we complain, we focus and center on the problem, which is just really makes the problem more bigger in our life. And when we express our need, we open doors for solutions. So expressing the need, if I told you guys like, man, my car is struggling because I don't have a battery. I don't have a solid battery. One of you may say, well, I got an extra battery out, or I have jumping cables right now. Well, whatever the case may be, just me expressing my need will open the door for solutions. But if I just complain about my car itself, it's not offering a solution. It's just more so focus on the problem at hand. And this is how we communicate. We trauma bond with individuals. So easy. We as men, we say things like, hey, big man, did you catch that game? And we'll speak about another sister in a derogatory manner, just to bond. But we won't tell that individual, hey, man, I've been suffering in silence for quite a while now. Is it any resource or community links that you can give me where I can get the help that I need? When we're more fluent at complaining, we continue that journey there, but expressing our needs can provide us better solutions.
Absolutely. And just piggybacking literally on what Mr. Al said, when we choose to only focus on what we don't like, we tend to stay in a state of frustration rather than gearing towards the resolution. So one example that I can think of is whenever we might say something like, I hate when these things keep happening. Well, we're expressing the discomfort, but we're not revealing the deeper need beneath it. Like the real need may be, hey, I need for you to respect me a little more, or I need some reassurance here. Or the one phrase that I have truly been using in my own life lately is in reference to clarity, like be it business partners or collaborations, family situations, romantic situation, whatever. I ask for clarity. Like, okay, now I need a little bit of clarity on this right here, or saying, I need some support with this. But if we never articulate the need, the situation just keeps repeating itself because the root of the issue was never addressed. It was never illuminated. So the suffering just continues, not because the need is unreasonable, but the need was never given a voice.
The
The
need
need.
was never given a voice. See?
That's right.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think you got us both with that one. Yeah.
Because I mean, it just keeps sticking to me. It's like, how can, if, and I'm just speaking hypothetically, if Mr. Al ticks me off, but I'm just expressing, dang, Mr. Al done ticked me off, da, da, da. But if I never say, well, Mr. Al, it ticked me off when you did such and such, how will you ever know? So if the need was never given a voice.
I promise you, Rand, this just happened today. Today, I was teaching a class, and right at the end, everything went smooth. And my wife was coming in, and one of my trainers, I won't expose her name because I'm make sure she watched this episode, but she was her facial expression was a little off, but I'm leaving out, and I'm telling her, hey, I had a great class, this, that, and other, and she said, hey, let me ask you something. When you said I was being bossy, what did you mean that? And she said, if you meant, before I could answer, she said, if you meant that, then you probably been looking at me the whole time as she showed
Wow.
us bossy and this. And I started pleading my case like I was just joking with you. I was feeling free. And I think this is a good time to express when sometimes like we feel so free that we can say like what we mean, even if we're being silly. Like I get to express that, but we are so serious when it comes to others, relationships, and even our playfulness has to be withdrawn because we don't want others to
Ooh.
take it the wrong way. And you just sent chills down my spine, Ren, when you said that. It's like, hey, that just happened right there. But I want to say, if she hadn't told me, we don't see each other often. I just would have left with that and her thinking, yeah, he think I'm bossy. And I never would have had the chance to express, hey, I was just kidding. Now, if I didn't have the ability to regulate my emotions, I could have too drew a fence like, what is you talking about? And not clarify how did I mean that. So
Oh man. Oh my goodness. So much. There's so much goodness there. First of all, I love the fact that both of you were both emotionally mature enough. She felt a way. She was emotionally mature enough to say, "Oh, hey, did you?" Because, like you said, kind of going back again to our emotional fluency episode, quit Q-tip, quit taking it personal. She took it personal, but she took it the step further to say, hold on, before I really take this too personal, before I sit with this in my personalness, let me ask him if that's truly what he meant, because I want clarity. Is this how he really looks at me? Because maybe other people look at me this way. Oh my goodness, when I saw that man last week when I was at the grocery store, maybe I came across that way to him. So who knows the things that started swarming in her head, because she's like, all this time, that's the way he looked at me. I bet other people, but she was emotionally mature enough to ask you. And then you were emotionally mature enough that when she did ask you, because you were so free emotionally, that you were healthy enough to be able to say, no, that I actually was joking. And I just point that out because I'm like, this is the beauty of working on this, of creating this healthy emotional fluency, if you will, and learning that you don't have to suffer in silence, because then you are free to share. And I know some of us know those people in our life that really are free sharing everything. And some of us don't want to become that person because you're like, Lord, here comes such and such. She say everything. But if I'm completely honest, because I have a neighbor like that. She say everything. She from up north, and Lord, everything comes out that mouth. But I'll be honest with you. I appreciate that kind. people that can express themselves sometimes a little too much, but I appreciate that a little bit more than if you don't say anything, because then I don't know. Like you said before, Ren, we're not mind readers. So if we don't express what we need, that can contribute to us suffering in silence, because if we're only saying what we don't like and we're not truly expressing the thing that we need, to your point, Mr. Al, then you cannot come to a solution.
Yes, that's right.
And this is all
Right.
about being able to create solutions.
Absolutely. And I just want to encourage our audience to continue, to this point, expressing and communicating, because even in my own personal life, situation literally runs parallel to this. And I spoke to my mom about it earlier, because I am in a space where I do a lot of chakra work. So I guess I done opened up my throat chakra a lot. And this past week, I guess it made someone that I felt like, was really close to me, it made them a little uncomfortable, because they're not used to being around people who speak up. But yet I had a friend, we went out yesterday for her birthday, and she said, "Sister, I just want to tell you, I appreciate your open communication." She said, "But for some people who aren't used to that, or for some people who haven't reached that point in their life, you can come off a little intimidating. It's not that you're yelling, it's not that you're cursing." But I said, "But I'm not going to change, because it took for me a while to get to this point through some healing, to quit suppressing those emotions and be able to speak up, to quit suffering in silence and just stuffing words down, to now I'm going to express it, even if it comes out, and please, I ask, if it hurt you, tell me it hurt you." Because I'm being very intentional to I don't do all that yelling and cussing and stuff, but I am going to speak very directly.
Yep. And it's like you said last time, Ren, everybody does not have the same how did you say, emotional dialect? Is that what it was?
Yeah. They don't, and it's okay. But that's why we're creating spaces like this. And hopefully, if it's someone out there in our audience that maybe experienced something and say, you know what, maybe this will help them go back and replay a situation. That person wasn't being bossy. They were just telling me exactly what I needed to hear, but maybe I wasn't in the space to want to hear it in that time. But hopefully by watching this episode, they'll learn that, people don't have to suffer in silence, and they don't have to tiptoe around verbiage when they're speaking, respectfully, in the truth.